The sound of my heel hitting the hardwood floor didn't echo. It cracked. Sharp, final. Like something breaking that wasn't supposed to break in public. 80 people watched as I fell. I was wearing a navy blue dress. My mother's dress. The one she wore to her last anniversary dinner before cancer took her. I wore it that night because she couldn't be there. And I thought maybe, somehow, a piece of her still could. But instead of honoring her, I hit the floor in it. And the man who pushed me, the man who taught me how to stand, looked down at me like I didn't belong. "That seat is for my real daughter," he said. "Get out." Not angry. Not confused. Certain. That was the worst part. Because in that moment, I realized something terrifying. My father didn't think he was wrong. He thought he was protecting something. And the girl sitting in my seat, the one he called his real daughter, rested her hand on his arm like she had been waiting for that moment her entire life. No one moved. No one spoke. Not the colleagues who had known him for decades. Not the family who watched me grow up. Not a single person in that room stood up for me. But what my father didn't know, what nobody in that room knew, was that the daughter he just chose over me had been stealing from him for 8 months. And my husband, he was standing in the back of that room, with proof in his jacket pocket. So let me ask you something. What would you do if the person who raised you suddenly decided you didn't exist? 3 years before that night, nothing looked broken. Not from the outside. My father, Richard Purcell, was the kind of man people trusted without asking questions. He spent 35 years at the same manufacturing plant outside Dayton, Ohio. Same shift, same routine, same quiet pride in doing things the right way. He believed in structure. Not just in buildings, but in life. Everything had a place. Everything carried weight. And if something failed, it was because someone didn't pay attention. He taught me that before I even understood the words. Saturday mornings, he would take me to construction sites. I wore steel, toed boots 2 sizes too big and a plastic hard hat that kept sliding over my eyes. He would point at a beam and say, "See that? That holds everything above it. You don't see it working, but without it, everything collapses." I was 9. I didn't understand then, but I do now. Because years later, I became a structural engineer, and I built my life around things that don't fail under pressure. My mother, Linda, was different. She worked nights as an ER nurse, but somehow she always made it home before I got off the school bus. She smelled like antiseptic and lavender. She sang off key while cooking, and she turned a small kitchen into something that felt safe, warm. Like no matter what happened outside, inside that house we were okay. We had a small oak table in the kitchen. My dad built it the year I was born. 3 chairs, one for him, one for my mom, one for me. No one extra, no one missing. He used to say, that was our world. Simple, solid, complete, until it wasn't. My mom was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer when I was 11. 14 months later, she was gone. I was 12 years old when I learned that silence can be louder than any noise. My father didn't fall apart, at least, not where I could see it. He still went to work every morning, still made dinner, still sat at that oak table across from me. My chair stayed where it always was. My mother's chair didn't. It stayed empty. Not moved, not replaced. Just empty. We didn't talk about it. We didn't have to. The absence sat with us every night like a fourth presence at the table. For 3 years, it was just the 2 of us. And even in the silence, it still felt like a family. That was the last time things felt real. When I was 15, my father told me he met someone. He said she would never replace my mother. I believed him. That was my second mistake. Her name was Victoria Ashford. She walked into our lives like she already knew where everything belonged. Perfect posture. Perfect smile. Perfect timing. She was polished in a way that didn't feel natural. Like every word had been rehearsed. She brought a bottle of wine to our house the first night she came over. It probably cost more than everything in our refrigerator combined. She complimented the curtains my mom had picked, asked about my classes, even offered to teach me how to drive. She was careful, strategic, And in the beginning, she was kind. Or at least, she knew how to look kind. They got married 6 months later. Small ceremony, she wore ivory. I wore the only formal dress I owned. Black. From my 8th grade graduation, no one mentioned it. No one mentioned a lot of things. At first, the changes were small. So small they didn't feel like changes. They felt like upgrades. Victoria replaced the oak table. Something more modern, she said. My father agreed. The table didn't get thrown away. It got moved. To the garage. Then my chair disappeared. The one with my initials carved into the back. We needed a matching set, she said. My father agreed. Again. Then came the photos. My mother's pictures moved from the living room to the hallway. From the hallway to a shelf. From the shelf to a box. Then they were gone. Not destroyed, just removed. Quietly, systematically, like they had never been part of the structure to begin with. That was how Victoria worked. She didn't break things. She replaced them, one piece at a time, until you looked around one day and realized nothing was yours anymore. Brooke moved in full time not long after, her daughter, 2 years younger than me. She was talkative, friendly, eager to belong, and she called my father, Dad, within the first week. The first time she said it, I remember exactly where I was standing. In the kitchen doorway. My father hugged her. Tight. Like something inside him had finally been filled. I didn't say anything. That was my third mistake. Because silence doesn't protect you. It trains people how to replace you. By the time I left for college at 18, the house didn't feel like mine anymore. It felt like a place I used to live. My room was no longer my room. My things were in boxes, stacked in the garage, next to the oak table. We needed the space, Victoria said. My father didn't argue. He never argued about small things, curtains, furniture, photos, rooms. To him, those weren't real problems. He dealt with load-bearing issues. What he didn't understand is that she had already started removing the load-bearing parts of our family, and he didn't even notice I left. And I built a life that made sense. A career. A marriage. A structure that could stand on its own. But back home, something else was being rebuilt. Without me. And 3 years before that night, it finally collapsed. I just didn't know it yet. 3 years passed without a single answer. Not one call returned. Not one message acknowledged. At first, I told myself he needed time. Then I told myself he was angry. Then I stopped telling myself anything at all. Because the truth was harder to admit. I didn't know why my father stopped loving me. Every Sunday, I called. It became a ritual, a pattern. Something steady in a situation that made no sense. Hey, Dad. Just checking in. Voicemail? Hey, it's me again. Call me when you can. Voicemail, love you. Always that at the end, even when I wasn't sure if he deserved to hear it. 147 calls. 42 messages. 3 years. Silence doesn't just hurt. It rewires you. You start questioning everything. Every memory. Every conversation. You replay moments, searching for the exact second you became someone worth ignoring. And the worst part, you never find it. Because it didn't happen the way you think it did. I almost drove back home twice. Both times, I sat in my car outside the house. Both times, Victoria answered the door before I could even knock. Arms crossed, smile polite, voice cold. He doesn't want to see you, Heather. The first time, I believed her. The second time, I understood something else. She wasn't delivering a message, she was controlling access. And I let her. Because pride is a quiet thing. It doesn't scream. It doesn't fight. It just tells you, if they wanted you, they would choose you. So I stopped pushing, not completely, but enough. Enough to give her space. Enough to let the silence stretch. Enough to let someone else rewrite the story. 8 weeks before the retirement party, something shifted. I didn't know it yet. But Marcus did. He got a phone call from a number he didn't recognize. A woman's voice. Older. Careful. Measured in the way people speak when they know what they're about to say matters. My name is Donna Webb, she said. I work in benefits administration at your father-in-law's company. I think there's something you need to see. Marcus didn't tell me. Not right away. That's how he works. He doesn't deal in possibilities. He deals in proof. And until he has it, he stays quiet. The invitation came a week later. Not from my father, not from Victoria, from a corporate email, mass distribution. You are cordially invited to celebrate the retirement of Richard Purcell, 30, 5 years, one night. Black tie optional. I stared at that email longer than I should have. 3 years of silence. And this was how I was invited back into his life. Not as a daughter. As a line item on a guest list. Marcus walked into the kitchen while I was still reading it. You should go, he said. I didn't look up. He hasn't spoken to me in 3 years. Exactly. That was his answer. Short, precise, unarguable. This might be the only time you see him in a room full of people. Something in that sentence stayed with me. A room full of people. Not private, not controlled, visible. That mattered. I didn't ask why. I didn't ask what Donna said. I didn't ask what he was thinking. I just nodded and started deciding what to wear. I chose my mother's dress, not because it fit the occasion, but because it meant something. Because if I was going to walk back into a room where I no longer belonged, I needed something that reminded me that I once did. The drive to Willowbrook Country Club was quiet, the kind of quiet that isn't uncomfortable, just heavy. Marcus kept both hands on the wheel, focused. Calm, like he already knew how the night was going to end. I watched the road and tried not to imagine mine. The building sat at the end of a long private drive, stone columns, perfect grass, everything designed to look permanent. Inside it was even worse. Crystal chandeliers, white linen, gold accents. A stage, a slideshow already playing on loop. 5 years of a man's life, edited into something clean, something presentable, something controlled. I found the seating chart near the entrance. I scanned it once, then again, then slower, table after table. Names I recognized, family, colleagues, friends. My name wasn't there, not at the head table, not in the middle, not even at the back. I didn't exist, not on paper, not in his life. Maybe it's a mistake, I said quietly. Marcus didn't answer. That was answer enough. Victoria appeared before I could decide whether to leave. Heather, she said, like she had just remembered I existed. I didn't think you'd come. The invitation said family. Of course, she smiled. It didn't reach her eyes. Nothing she did ever did. She guided us through the room. Not toward the stage. Not toward my father. Away. To a small table near the back. 2 chairs, no name card, no centerpiece. A placeholder, a technicality. I sat down. Marcus sat across from me. Neither of us touched the bread. From that angle, I could see everything. My father at the head table. Well-dressed, relaxed, comfortable. Brooke sitting beside him, close, familiar. Her hand resting on his arm like it belonged there. Like she belonged there. Like she had always belonged there. He laughed at something she said. And for a moment, I forgot how to breathe. Because I recognized that laugh. And I realized something that hurt more than the silence ever did. He wasn't broken without me. He had replaced me, completely. A slideshow started behind them. Photos filled the screen. Career milestones, celebrations. And then, family, Victoria and Richard, Brooke and Richard, trips, holidays, birthdays, smiles. Perfect moments. Frame after frame. Not a single picture of me. Not a single picture of my mother. 5 years edited down to a version of his life where we had never existed. That was the moment I understood. This wasn't distance. This wasn't misunderstanding. This was erasure. Intentional. Carefully constructed. Complete. Marcus reached across the table and took my hand. He didn't say anything. He didn't need to. Because words wouldn't have fixed what I was seeing. And then Victoria stepped onto the stage. Tonight, we celebrate an incredible man, a husband, and a father. She paused, smiled, and then said it, especially to his daughter, Brooke. His pride and joy. All the room applauded. Brooke stood, waved, glowed, and something inside me went still. Not shattered, not broken, just still. Like the moment before something irreversible happens. That was when I stood up. Not because I had a plan, not because I thought it would go well, But because there was nothing left to lose, I walked past every table, every stare, every whisper, every person who chose to watch instead of speak, straight to the stage. There was one empty chair. I put my hand on it. Dad. He looked at me. And for a second, just 1 second, I thought I saw something, recognition, memory, something human. It's been 3 years? I said. Can we talk? Victoria leaned in, whispered something in his ear. I didn't hear the words, but I saw the effect. His expression changed, closed, hardened, gone. He stood up, walked toward me, put his hands on my shoulders, and pushed. Everything after that, you already know. But what you don't know is what happened next. Because that was the moment my husband decided he was done staying quiet. For a moment, I almost walked out. My hand was already reaching for my clutch, my body already turning toward the door. Every instinct I had was telling me the same thing. Leave with what dignity you have left. Leave before this gets worse. Because how do you fight something like that? How do you argue with a man who looks at you and sees nothing? But then I heard a chair move, not loudly, not dramatically, just enough to cut through everything else. I turned. Marcus was standing. He didn't rush. He didn't react like everyone else in that room expected him to. No anger. No shouting. No chaos. He buttoned his suit jacket, adjusted his cuffs, the same way he does before presenting a case. Precise, controlled, final. I had seen that motion before. It meant one thing. He already knew how this was going to end. He walked toward me first. Offered his hand. I took it. He helped me stand. His grip was steady, grounding. He glanced at the tear in my dress, just for a second. But I saw it, that flicker in his eyes, not anger, something colder, something sharper. Then it was gone, replaced with calm. He turned and walked toward the head table. Mr. Purcell. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried. The kind of voice that doesn't need volume to control a room. I'm Marcus. Your daughter's husband. He paused. Just enough. The daughter you just pushed to the floor. A ripple moved through the room, not loud, but noticeable. My father's expression tightened. I don't have anything to say to you. Take her and leave. I understand, Marcus said calmly. And we will. Right after I ask you one question. Victoria stood up immediately. Marcus, this is not the time. It's exactly the time. He didn't raise his voice. He didn't look at her. That was the part that unsettled her the most. Because she wasn't in control of this conversation. Not anymore. Marcus kept his eyes on my father. When was the last time you checked your phone messages? Silence. Confusion. What? My father said. A simple question, Marcus replied. When was the last time you personally reviewed your calls and texts? Victoria moved closer. Faster now. Richard, don't engage. This is manipulation. Marcus didn't react, didn't acknowledge her. I already have the answer, he said. And then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a manila envelope. Thick, heavy. Deliberate? He placed it on the table in front of my father. Gently. Like it mattered. Like what was inside it mattered more than everything else in that room. You can stop now, he said quietly. I brought the paperwork. The room changed. You could feel it. That invisible shift when curiosity turns into attention. When attention turns into tension. My father looked down at the envelope. Didn't touch it. Didn't push it away. Just looked. What is this supposed to prove? He asked. That depends, Marcus said. On whether you want the truth or the version you've been given. Victoria stepped between them, physically blocking the envelope. Richard, they are trying to ruin your night. Don't let them. Her voice was perfect, measured, emotional in all the right places. She turned slightly toward the room. I'm so sorry, everyone. This is a misunderstanding. A few people nodded, uncomfortable, relieved to have something easy to believe. But Marcus didn't move, didn't step back, didn't argue. He simply waited. And that was the difference. Victoria needed control. Marcus only needed time. Sir, Marcus said, still calm. May I show you what's inside? 60 seconds. That's all he asked for. 60 seconds To dismantle 3 years. My father hesitated, looked at Victoria, looked at the envelope, and then he opened it. The first document came out slowly, a form, familiar, recognizable, even from where I was standing. Beneficiary designation. My father's eyes moved across the page, then stopped, his brow tightened. This, he said slowly. This isn't right. Marcus placed a second document beside it. Compare them, he said. 2 forms, same structure, same layout, different dates, different names. The first one had mine, Heather Purcell, 50%. The rest my mother's estate. The second one a Brooke Ashford, 100%. My father picked up the second form, brought it closer, studied the signature, longer this time, slower, and then something shifted, subtle, but undeniable. This isn't my signature. Victoria stepped forward immediately. That's ridiculous. No, he said, sharper now. I don't write my R like that. He looked up, not at me, at Marcus, and for the first time, there was doubt, real doubt. Marcus didn't push, didn't escalate, he just added the next piece. 8 months ago, someone submitted that form electronically. My father frowned. I don't submit paperwork electronically, I know. Another document. Phone records, pages of them, stacked, detailed. Your daughter called you 147 times in the past 3 years. Silence. Absolute. Heavy. That's not possible, my father said. My phone never rang. Check it, Marcus said, right now. Victoria stepped in again. This is absurd. Let him check. That came from across the room, a different voice, older, steady. Donna. She stepped forward slowly, measured, confident. I flagged the discrepancy 2 months ago, she said. The submission didn't match his records. The room was no longer divided. It was leaning toward the truth. My father pulled out his phone. His hands weren't steady anymore. He moved through the settings, slower than he should have, like part of him already knew what he was about to find. Blocked contacts. 1 number. Mine. He stared at it. Too long, too still. You blocked her, he said. Not to me, to Victoria. You blocked my daughter. She opened her mouth, paused, recalculated, and then, for the first time that night, she dropped the act. Yes, she said. Sharp, defensive. Because she was toxic, she was trying to control you. She was calling me. You were getting confused. You were. She was my daughter? That broke. Not loudly, but completely. Something inside him gave way. And once it did, everything else followed. The room didn't move, didn't speak, didn't breathe. Because everyone understood the same thing at the same time. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a system, built, maintained, executed, for 3 years, and it was collapsing, right in front of them. After the truth came out, no one clapped. No one spoke. Because there are moments in life where resolution doesn't feel like victory. It feels like collapse. My father stood there, in the center of a room that had just watched his entire reality fall apart. The documents were still on the table. The phone still in his hand. My number still sitting in his blocked list like evidence that couldn't be argued away. He looked smaller, not physically, but structurally, like something inside him had shifted out of alignment, and he didn't know how to stand on it anymore. He stepped down from the platform, slow, deliberate. Not toward Victoria, not toward the guests, toward me. Each step felt heavy, like he was walking through everything he had ignored for 3 years. He stopped in front of me, close enough that I could see it clearly now. The regret. Not performative, not polished, real. His eyes dropped to my dress. The tear, the navy fabric, my mother's dress. That was your mother's, he said quietly. Yes. You wore it for tonight? Yes. For me, that was the moment, not the evidence, not the confrontation. This, the realization of what I had brought into that room, and what he had done to it. To me, something broke, not violently, not dramatically, just finally. I pushed you, he said. You did. In front of everyone. Less. There was no anger in my voice, no softness either. Just truth. The same kind he had spent his life respecting, and the same kind he had avoided for 3 years. He nodded slowly, like a man acknowledging structural failure in something he built himself. I believed her, he said. Every word measured, careful, heavy. I believed everything she told me, because it was easier than admitting I was losing you. He paused, looked down at his hands. The same hands that had taught me how to build. The same hands that pushed me away. After your mother died, I didn't know how to do this alone. His voice lowered. I didn't know how to be your father without her. That was the first honest thing he had said all night. Not about Victoria. Not about the fraud. About himself. And that mattered. Because truth doesn't repair everything, but it gives you something real to stand on. She made things simple. He continued. She handled everything. And I let her, because I didn't want to look at what I was failing to hold together. He finally looked at me. Directly. No filters. No interference. I'm sorry. Not dramatic. Not rehearsed. Not enough to fix anything, but real. I'm sorry I pushed you. I'm sorry I didn't answer your calls. I'm sorry I let them take your mother out of this house, out of our lives. The room was still watching, but it didn't matter anymore. Because this part wasn't for them. It was for us. And I had a choice. Not whether to forgive him. That wasn't something that happens in a moment. But whether to tell the truth back. I accept your apology, I said. He nodded, relieved too quickly, and I stopped him there. But that doesn't mean I trust you. The relief faded, replaced with something harder. Understanding. We don't fix 3 years in one conversation, I continued. This isn't the end. It's the beginning. He nodded again, slower this time. I know. And for the first time that night, I believed him. Behind us, Victoria was still standing, still trying, still refusing to accept what had already happened. This is manipulation, she said to the room. They planned this. They came here to humiliate him. No one responded. Not this time, because the structure she built is already gone, and no amount of words could rebuild it. Richard didn't even turn around. The only person who planned anything here was you. His voice was calm. Final. You removed my daughter from my life piece by piece. The photos. The calls. The holidays. And tonight, he paused. You tried to make her disappear completely. Victoria looked around the room, searching. For support. For agreement. For anything. She found nothing. Because people don't defend lies once they've seen the truth. Not openly. Not anymore. Brooke stepped forward slowly. She didn't look like the same person. The confidence. The certainty. Gone. I didn't know about the signature, she said. Her voice was thin, unsteady. But you knew about the calls, I said. She didn't answer. And that silence said everything. I just wanted a father, she whispered. And for a moment, I understood her. Not enough to excuse it, but enough to see it clearly. You don't get one by erasing someone else, I said. She nodded. Small. Tight. Then turned and walked away. No drama, no argument, just gone. Victoria followed not long after. Not defeated, not apologetic, just exposed. And alone, the room began to move again, slowly, carefully. Like people weren't sure what they were allowed to say anymore. But I didn't notice most of it. Because my father was still standing in front of me. Waiting. Not for forgiveness. For direction. And that was new. That seat, he said quietly. It was always yours. He walked back to the table, pulled out the chair. Not offered. Given. And this time, I sat, not because everything was fixed, but because for the first time in 3 years, I was no longer invisible. Some stories don't end with everything fixed. They end with something quieter. A chair pulled out at a table that used to feel like home. A phone that finally rings. A conversation that doesn't solve everything, but starts something real. 2 weeks after that night, I walked back into my father's house. The door wasn't locked. It hadn't been for years, but this time it felt different. Like I was being let in, not kept out. The air didn't smell like her perfume anymore. No candles, no polished surfaces pretending to be perfect. Just space, honest space. And in the middle of the kitchen, the oak table. The one my father built the year I was born. It wasn't perfect. The surface had been sanded down, refinished. But the marks were still there. Scratches that wouldn't disappear, lines carved by time, by memory, by everything that had happened around it. I ran my hand across its slothing, and I understood something. Not everything broken needs to be replaced. Some things, you rebuild. My chair was there, the one with my initials carved into the back, uneven, a little unstable, but still standing, just like us. My father stood in the doorway holding 2 cups of coffee. No speeches, no rehearsed apologies, just presence. I couldn't fix all of it, he said. You don't have to, I replied. We sat down, across from each other, the same way we used to, only this time. There was no empty chair between us. On the wall behind him, a photo of my mother. Back where it belonged. That mattered more than anything he could have said. People ask me if I forgave him. The truth is, forgiveness isn't a moment, it's a process. Slow, uncomfortable, measured in small decisions. Some days, I remember the floor, the sound of the impact, the tear in my mother's dress, and I feel it all over again. Other days, I remember this. A table. 2 cups of coffee. A man trying to do better than he did yesterday. And I choose to stay. Not because everything is okay, but because not everything is broken anymore. Here's what I learned. Silence can erase you. But showing up, even when it hurts, even when you're not sure you belong, that can bring you back. Not perfectly. Not completely. But enough. Enough to start again. So let me ask you something. If you had one chance, just one, to say something honest to the person who hurt you the most, what would you say? Not to fix it, not to change them, just to finally say your truth. Write it in the comments. Someone out there might need to read it. And if this story felt familiar, if it reminded you of something you've been carrying quietly, stay. There are more stories like this. And maybe one of them will feel like yours.